everybody. Welcome to Rewind and Reflect, where we believe in the universal truth that there is no such thing as nope, I did it again. No such thing as coincidence or as mistakes. Again, there is such thing as consequences, and we do not suggest that you try to tempt the universe to show you the truth in that. So anyways, I'm Deb Miller.
And I'm Susan Doyle. It's okay. Listen, we have not advertised ourselves as perfect human beings. I love the
No.
fact that we screw up. I do. I love because, let's face it, we've been screwing up since seventh grade.
Yeah, I
And
know.
you know, you got to laugh about it. And it wasn't really a screw up. Obviously, there was something on your mind that made you say consequence instead of coincidence, but
Yeah, I don't know. I just they sound so much alike and one just came out instead of the other. But I try not to put myself in a position where I'm gonna have to, pay a consequence because I feel like I've
yeah.
done that. So
Yeah.
I'm done.
Amen. Amen.
So,
So what's going on?
oh my gosh,
How's it going up in Florida? It looks a little warmer. Or you look like you're dressed that it's a little warmer there.
I got a little wrap around me because it was
Mm,
chilly. It's like in mid 70s, which is nice, but it's
yeah.
not like that warm, balmy air like it
Yeah.
normally is. So there's a little bit of a chill to it. Woe is
Okay.
me. I know it's probably
Yeah, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's not really balmy here either. No. I think the wind died down today though, but it's like mid-20s. The sun's out. The sun actually, I do have to say, and I try and practice gratitude every day, and I'm super grateful that the days are getting a little bit longer. I feel usually at this time of year when the sun is out, it's a little warmer. It's not quite wintry. It's not a winter sun, and I feel like we're slowly coming out of the winter darkness. Um,
Yes. So
how was your night or how's your week been since I saw you last?
good, but I had the weirdest thing happen to me last night. Well, it didn't happen
Okay.
to me. I was a witness to it. And one of the things about living in Florida, especially in the area that I live in, there's a lot of elderly people. Now, I don't go out to dinner that much because, especially during this time of year, busy season when all the snowbirds come down, it's impossible to get in a restaurant. It's traffic is crazy. And, I'm just as happy being home and cooking a meal. So, but last night, my a girlfriend and I decided we would meet for dinner before we go to our AA meeting. And so we're having dinner, and I'm at this table, and there's a table over here next to us that I'm facing that has four adults, and they're probably in their like 70s. And all of the sudden, the guy who's like mirroring me closes, I don't mean to laugh, but it was just so weird. Closes his eyes and like slouches over. And I'm like, oh my God, that guy just died. He's dead. Like, but what his wife did was came up behind him, like, so he's like this. He like pushed his head in there, almost like to make him look like he's not dead. And
Clearly he wasn't dead if you're laughing right now. Clearly he was not dead. So let's just make sure the audience knows that we are we are not laughing because some man died over his chicken parm last night. But go ahead.
it was like Weekend at Bernie's, when that's all I could think about was like, oh, what is she doing? The poor guy literally. So then I go, oh, maybe he has narcolepsy. So she sits him up, and he's now like this. And then his eyes go wide open, and he looks around. Now, meanwhile, the other couple has jumped up and it's like, oh my God, oh my God. And he eyes wide open goes, I'm okay. I'm okay. And I was like, oh. So I say to my friend, she's like, looking, she was a nurse. So of course she wants to get all involved. And I'm like, no, no, he's fine. He's fine. He's fine. Just let's not make give him this attention. Well, he did it again. And
No.
this time he just like eyes closed like this. And and then the waiter and the manager came over and said, "Is he okay?" I don't, for some reason, the wife was like, "Yeah, he's okay." Like, it's like, he's not okay. He's not okay. And then and he's still unconscious, and he just starts like vomiting. Yeah.
No.
So I'm like, okay, this guy is not okay. I don't know why his wife is, it was as if she was like, "You're not going to
He
embarrass me to
clearly
my
had not
job."
been out of the house in a while and wanted her meal, dessert and coffee.
And he was not going to embarrass her, right?
Yeah,
So,
we're fine.
and then when the vomiting started, and this is, I mean, obviously I was very worried for him, but I didn't want to, everybody was like, wanted to, didn't want to give too much attention because it gets like embarrassing and stressful for the people.
Hmm.
So I kept engaging in the conversation with my friend and thinking, "Oh my God, they're going to serve me my dinner like any minute now." And this guy is across from me, just vomiting, unconscious and vomiting. And I'm like, "I'm never going to be able to eat." And oh my God, is he dead? Like, is he dying? Like, what is happening? Is that a heart attack? I don't think so, because he was like unconscious and then he was conscious. And then finally the medics are called in. And they come in and they pick him up. And when they moved him in his chair, he woke up again. And he's like, "I'm all
I'm
right.
fine.
I'm all right." And we're all like, "No, dude, you're not okay. Go to the hospital." So, anyways, they took him on, and he was wide awake when they wheeled him out. So I'm comfortable in saying that he's alive. I
Hmm.
don't know what happened to him, but all I could think was after he left, it was such a bizarre situation with the wife trying to prop him up, making him look like he's okay when he wasn't, and like the whole 9 yards. But I kept thinking to myself, wow, I life is so fragile.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, they were older, whatever, but still, it doesn't matter. Like, that man has a family, and that family, like, now is, worried, concerned about his health, and like whatever. It just was an eye opener for me, because I really thought that he died right in front of me. And
Mm.
I've never witnessed something like that. Again, he didn't die. He was wide awake after a little while, but the first thought was like, this guy just had a heart attack and he's dead right now. And that was really
Wow.
uncomfortable and sad and shocking and all this stuff at the same time. Anyways,
I had somebody, we brought him back to life, but there was a guy in the fitness center one day when I was working who had a massive heart, was sitting there and just sort of went over and forward. We ended up being, getting to him in time because we saw it happening.
you saw it happening,
And
like you were watching him,
mhm,
and so you knew something was up.
yeah, yeah, and thank goodness there was enough people around. We hit him with the AED and he came back to life, but we did lose his pulse for a little bit. It was weird. It was very
Oh,
scary.
that's
It was very
scary.
scary. And it was one of those things that I've been CPR certified since I started lifeguarding when I was 15, right? And I always was like, I've never had to use it. I've never had to use it. I've never had to use it. And then and then you think to yourself, would I panic? Would I be able to pull up this knowledge to be able to use it? Or would
Mhm.
I sit there, frozen solid, not being able to do it? And and so yeah, it was probably 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago maybe that we did. And yeah, never had to use it since, knock on wood. But yeah, I did remember. I did remember.
Wow.
Um,
So remember last year when my mom had a pulmonary embolism, which
hmm.
never survived from, or you never survive without any kind of brain damage, but she did, and she's doing great. it was my dad, my 81-year-old father, who jumped on her and started doing compressions. He never in his life has done those or anything. He just knew to do them
Hmm.
instinctively. And I said to him, Dad, how did you even know? He said there was a force behind me that just was telling me what to do. 15 minutes of nonstop compressions.
It's exhausting.
81 years
He
old.
must have been exhausted.
Well, I'm sure he was, but she was in such rough shape for so long. Like every day we were being told this is probably her last day. This is probably her last day. This, and so he didn't sleep for weeks, you know. Um, but anyways, we've gotten through that, which thank God she's okay.
Yeah,
But
so let's we can tell the audience that, your mom survived and is actually like thriving. So it's interesting to me because I've always been one to really believe of the power of positive thinking.
oh, and she's
You
the
know,
most
so
positive person ever.
so did you, your brothers, your father, or your mom ever allow themselves to think that it would go anywhere other than her being okay?
Yes. We were, again, the first 24, 48 hours, we were being told, like she was posturing. She was going like this, which was telling us that she had brain trauma and
Mm-hmm.
brain malfunction or whatever you want, brain
Mm-hmm.
damage. And so the doctors kept really preparing us, like she's probably not going to make it through the night. And then the next day they were like, so in order for us to really, I had a really strong inkling that she was going to be okay. Like I somehow knew that, and I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how or why, because I mean, I'm sure it had a lot to do with my faith, but I had also a lot of people that I had called to get her on prayer groups and stuff. But I did say to my dad at one time, because I knew that he needed to prepare for the worst. And I
Mm.
said, Dad, we just have to understand that if she comes home, life will probably not look the same, but that's okay. We'll get through it and we'll figure things out. Because I knew that he needed that. And I knew my brothers did too. Like, it's really hard to go into a room of people who are in shock and in mourning and confused and be like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Like nobody wants to hear that. You got to really understand, like, meet people where they are, so to speak, and just understand.
Yeah, I get that. It's more, I would venture to guess that your mom never allowed herself to think that she wasn't going to come out and be fine. And that's, I think, what helped in my, I would think that's what helped her heal. That's what helped her get to that, to where she is today, where it seems, other than the medication that she's on, seems like nothing ever happened.
Right. So,
Right. And so, it brings up something that you and I talk about a lot is, your thoughts become, what you give energy to, positive thoughts or negative thoughts, become true.
absolutely. Right. So
My yoga teacher the other day said your words become your world.
yeah, thoughts become things. And
So
here's
preparing for something, I think, is different than your mother thinking that she was not going to come out and be okay.
Well, there's two trains of thought here. One is what I thought and believed was she's going to be okay. It's going to be a long road. And that is what I told myself, and that is what I perceived happening.
Hmm.
But then there's other conversations that had to be had, you know, because I knew my dad was not going to hear what I had to say. He just
Right.
wasn't. He was too frightened and scared, and he needed he's more like that scientific kind of thing, and I'm more the spiritual.
Hmm.
So, but absolutely positively, yes. When you start to put that thought in motion, and not only think it, but really believe it and perceive it. It's going to happen.
Correct. Correct. I 100% agree with you. Sometimes, there's been times in my life where I feel like, I've used the term ignorance is bliss, or I've used a term where, if I don't feed the fire doesn't grow, kind of thing. But truly, now that I've seen some kind of tragic things in my life, or really positive things where people have literally energized themselves out of situations because they just will not allow themselves to think that way. And
Right.
the power of positive thinking, and it brings me back to, I don't know who. I see this, and I've read it in some of my yoga trainings, is the story of the two wolves.
Oh
And I
my God.
don't, I'm going to butcher it, but basically what it's the son going to his father, um, talking about seeing a wolf, and the father is saying, everybody has two wolves, one that is telling you that you can't and you won't, and think, and it's negative, and then there's the powerful wolf that says you can and you will, and the son asks the father, which wolf wins? And the father says to the son, the one that you feed. And
Powerful statement and story.
yeah, and so I believe that your mom, knowing what I know of your mom, she couldn't have allowed herself to go to that space.
Yeah.
She wasn't, she wasn't ready. I mean, I do believe that people, there are signs, and this was, I don't know what kind of sign this was for her. I'm still working on that one, but I have to believe that she just fed the wolf that was going to make her
Mhm.
strong and healthy and back to living life with your dad.
Yeah, I mean the one when my mother gained consciousness, which was after several days, and then the tube came out and she started and then there was a plan in place for her to get better, and the PT and the breathing treatments and all of that. And man, she was just like once she was like awake and conscious and knew like, okay, I got to get better. I'm not okay. I got to get better.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, I'm not going anywhere. And she just did it all. And she just blew
Right.
in record speed, so much so that she would have doctors and nurses from all over the hospital come and see her because what she was like a miracle. What
Yeah.
she went through and survived without any, any problems was miraculous. And it
Right.
did have a lot to do with her. She's always been a very positive thinker. My father always made fun of her, saying she lived through a life looking through rose-colored glasses and oh, everything's
Yeah.
good, la 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 la. La. And I love that. I'm glad that I got some of that from her because I choose to see the good and the positive and not and the light and not the dark. I can't live in the dark. I cannot live being mad at people or angry with the world. And I live in my circle of control and I choose to be happy there. But I also want to say, Sue, that like sometimes people do die and sometimes people don't survive or they survive and they have issues afterwards. I'm not saying that like, oh, everybody, but I was a positive person, this
Yeah.
happened to me. I'm not saying that that does happen. It's the attitude that you take once you have been um, challenged with a situation that makes all the difference.
I 100% agree. And I thank you for saying that because, yeah, I'm not saying that, and for me, it took me a very long time to get to this way of being. You know, I, I wasn't necessarily a negative person, but I always, I was not a glass half full person for a very long time.
Mm,
things would be going really well, and sort of in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, there's a shoe is going to drop, something's going to happen. And so I never really allowed myself to experience the full depth of the joy or the full depth of the positivity. Um, and so I think what has helped me is realizing that I have no control over whether that shoe drops. So why not experience that beautiful unadulterated joy?
mhm.
So I'm full when I have to face something that is something that is not, was not in my plan, kind of thing.
Right, right.
And so really coming to grasp and coming to understand that what I had control over is the way I thought about things.
Mhm. And
You
reacted
know,
to them.
correct, correct. Just like at the beginning, I said, and I think a lot of it starts with gratitude. I said, I hate the winter, hate the snow, hate the cold temperatures. But I find every day I'm grateful. I am very grateful for that one extra minute of daylight or a little bit of sunshine. And so what I've tried to do is, and my therapist calls it flipping the script, right? So I
Rewrite this.
look at the positive part of winter. The positive part of winter to me is it goes into spring and then spring goes into summer. But, I think it is truly, truly goes back to, what wolf are you choosing to feed? Because that is the wolf that wins. Your
And you know
words
what?
become your world.
Yes, and you want that wolf to be really fat and meaty because when
Right.
the times will come, and I call it my spiritual bucket, as long as every day I have something to add in gratitude, and therefore my my spiritual bucket gets fuller and fuller and fuller and fuller, because there will be days where something is going to hit me and I'm going to need to pull from that
Yeah.
bucket.
You need to tap into that. So, or there's
Yeah.
going to be times where you do not have the power to continue to feed that wolf. So he needs to live off of his fat for a little while.
That's exactly right. Wow,
Yeah.
that's such a great metaphor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's so true. You just gotta every day just be grateful and count blessings that come your way, because there's so many if you just take a minute to look for them, right? It's like,
Yeah. I mean, and some days it's harder, or some situations it's harder to see it. I'm sure you had some very dark days when Hunter was sick.
oh yeah,
But
the darkest.
he, you have spoken to me on more than one occasion where he was the one who brought some positivity, and he was the one who didn't allow you guys to go down that rabbit hole. And look at him.
I
I mean,
know.
there were kids in the hospital with him that were not as fortunate as him to be granted the life that he lives now. And I, I wholeheartedly believe it's his attitude helped it.
Right. I mean, like his little mantra during that was attitude is everything. And guess where he
Hmm.
got that from? My mother when she was battling cancer. And he said it right out. He said, I watched my grandmother go through cancer treatments and she always had the best attitude, so positive. He's like, so attitude is everything. And then they made those little bracelets, attitude,
Hmm.
hanging with Hunter. And it's really true. But again, sometimes some days are easier than others
Of
to really,
course.
you know and
Of course.
I don't want anybody in our audience to feel like if they're having a hard time that we're just like, oh, just change your attitude. It's not, that's not what it is at all. um this is hard work. It's hard work to be kind to yourself, give yourself a break, and to be in a place of gratitude a lot. It is a practice. I think because when Hunter was sick, I saw so many gifts of humanity, beautiful
Right.
gifts from humanity. And I just was like, okay, I this is a gift that I'm getting out of this really horrible
Mm-hmm.
situation. And so that kind of triggered my, okay, I'm going to look for the good things today.
Mm-hmm. Right. And those things were good things. And so you chose to, and it is a choice. I mean, it is a choice. And sometimes, if I don't get enough sleep, or if I haven't taken care of myself, or I haven't eaten properly, or what have you, or I haven't slept well, which usually isn't my case, but it's harder. It's the harder path to choose,
Yeah.
but it gives you the most reward.
Yes.
Because
And,
you
and
do see, even though you're in a dark spot, or in it where you can't see the light, if you choose to see these beautiful human things going on around you, towards
yeah,
you, for you, within your circle, that positivity, even just that creates a positive conversation with yourself of,
right.
you know
And honestly, there's days where I just need to disconnect. And that means I need to stay in bed a little bit longer, and just disconnect. And I know, and that's okay too. If that's what I need in order to maintain some if I'm having a bad day and I can't find the things that I need to pull me out of that, I know that I just need to be alone that day or whatever. And that's okay too. It's sometimes it can be a lot of pressure to live
Mhm.
life and see, all the good things because, we're
Oh
faced with
yeah.
a lot of negative
I
things. And
mean, and right, and life, at times gets very hard, gets very
yeah,
challenging.
it really does, especially um when somebody other than you that you care about or love is suffering and you can't do
Hmm.
anything about it. Those kind of situations are really difficult. But I just want our audience to, take care of themselves and do what they need to do to find joy. And if you're having difficulty finding that, reach out to somebody because
Yeah.
we've all been through it. We're all we've all been through tough times and we can reach out our hand to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also believe that the fatter your wolf, the more that you can share.
Yes, you can feed
And
somebody else's
so
wolf if they need to
you
defend.
may be able to, yeah, to feed somebody else's wolf off of yours.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's this ripple effect that creates, positivity, and you may not be able to think it yourself, but if it's one of those things that you could reach out to somebody who has an abundance of it, or can just simply give you the energy that you need to see that you will come out of, the dark time.
Yeah, that's another good topic. Like, do you have that person? Like, do you have that
Mm.
person that if you need a little bit of infusion that you go to them, whether it be laughter or just good advice?
I have really, I would say, four amazing women in my life. You being one of them.
Of course.
My daughter
Yeah.
always makes me laugh, or will give me a dose of reality.
Hmm.
um, my friend Jill, who I have been friends with since, oh my goodness, since I was like 18 or 19. She's about 9 or 10 years older than me. Um, she was the one who taught me how to teach aerobics back in the day.
Oh,
And my friend Darcy,
oh
who
yeah,
I met her when Olivia was a couple of months old. Um, and we can always find, yes,
yeah,
I can
that's
go
good.
to any one of those people to feed off of or have a laugh or yeah. And the same for them in the sense that, I really hope that I provide the same for them. How
Yeah.
about
Oh,
you?
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, same. I mean, I've got I keep my circle very small. I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of women that I care about deeply and I love, but my circle is of who I'm going to call when I just need something is small as well, you know?
Hmm.
So it's funny, and they all have their little perks. Like if I need a good laugh and just to reminisce about some stupid stuff, like
Right.
obviously I'm going to call you because I enjoy kind of reminiscing about those days when, we were younger and in high school, and it
Hmm.
just brings me comfort. I don't know why. Some people hate
Yes.
school and some people hated those years. I mean, they weren't easy years, but I don't know. They just bring me some comfort when I'm feeling a little disconnected. Um,
I remember seeing you and Kevin in person last summer or last fall. Um,
in Newport.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was one of those things that it just being around you too gave me this positive infusion, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with um
Familiarity, maybe.
yeah, I mean,
Familiar.
I've known Kevin since I was 5 years old,
I
4 years
know.
old. Like I think we went to preschool together. I
Yeah.
mean, so there's just this comfort level or this infusion of positivity that you can't replicate, you can't force,
Yeah.
you know.
I
And it
it's
doesn't necessarily have to be reminiscing about things that happened then. It's just the energy that it
yeah.
gives me, the
Yeah.
energy that I can absorb, if that makes any sense at all.
It totally makes sense. And I love that. And I love that we could give that to you. And that's how I feel too when
Hmm.
I hug you and I'm like, oh, it's just like, it's just a familiar, safe feeling that I get.
Hmm.
Um, so anyways, I hope that whoever's listening to this gets something positive out of it. And if they are feeling alone or disconnected or need an infusion of any kind, legal
Yeah,
infusion. I don't do the other infusions anymore.
yeah.
That they reach out and either to us or somebody else, you know.
Agreed. We'd love to hear from you all. We would love to start having some guests on that can tell us their stories, um,
Yeah.
share, you know, anything that we've talked about, anything that we haven't talked about. Um, please reach out to us. It's either rewind and reflect with us, all spelled out at gmail.com. You can also leave a comment on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify now and Amazon Music and one other one, I think. What was the other one?
You're asking me to remember something and I
I don't
don't remember.
remember. So yeah, I we'd love to hear from you and you know, find what feeds your wolf.
Mhm. Love it. Namaste, everybody. Love you.
Love you. I'll talk to you next week. Bye. Bye.